Thanks for joining us for Season 5 of the Service to School Stories podcast. I'm Sydney Mathis, your host and Chief Program Officer at Service to School. This season, we wanted to highlight some of our incredible alumni and dive deeper into their stories. You'll hear from a variety of student veterans about their journey from the military through the admissions process and onto campus. Guests will share how they overcame challenges, and we'll look back on their journey to give some advice along the way. Let's kick it off. All right, on the podcast today, I am joined by Kate Ruelan. Kate is currently studying at one of our partner schools. She is starting at Cornell. Classes are underway, so excited to chat with you more about that. But Kate was one of our Service to School scholars in our recently launched program, the cohort program. So we'll chat a little bit about your experience in the cohort, but Kate, super excited for you to share your journey and your story with our listeners. So let's go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your military background and kind of how you've gotten to where you're at today at Cornell.
I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years, right out of high school. So from 2014 to 2019. I knew before going into the Marine Corps that I wanted to go to school, but I really didn't have a lot of like direction. I was a good student in high school, but I wasn't a super engaged student. And so the thought of going to college right out of high school was like terrifying because I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, and there's like a lot of pressure on you to kind of like have your life figured out. But I went to the Marine Corps. I had always wanted to since I was younger, and my mindset at the time was really, you can go to school whenever, but like this is kind of, this is a good step for right now. And it was a really good step. It gave me a lot of time to grow up, to learn a lot more about myself, to mature a lot. I think I really honed in on my work ethic during that time. But I got out of the Marine Corps at the end of 2019, and I told myself that I was going to take a little bit of a break. And then a little bit of a break turned into a long break because of COVID. And I ended up getting a full-time job in the middle of COVID in the summer of 2020, in electronics manufacturing, which I worked with electronics in the Marine Corps. And I loved it then. And so I started this job. I really loved it. I was really lucky. I ended up at a place where they put a lot of trust in me and they gave me a lot of responsibility, and I grew a lot in a professional sense there. And so I had this like urge that I wanted to go to school, but it never really seemed like the right time. I was really successful at my job. I poured a lot of myself into it, so it was hard to like pull myself away.
Away from it.
So I started with one class. I took one calculus one class at a community college. And I was like, let me just like tiptoe into this, kind of like see what's up. It was a struggle at first. I remember sitting there the first like 3 weeks and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I haven't seen this stuff in years. Um, and then, I ended that class with an A at the end of the semester, and I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I can do this. And so then, I was still working full time. The next semester, I think I took 8 credits. Um, so school part time, work full time. Um, and at first, it was really good. And I was like, this is feeling really great. And then, I started to see more success in school. And so then, that drove me to want to pursue school more. And then I was really at this middle road where I was taking on a lot at school and then taking on a lot of more responsibility at work. Um, and I was kind of like, it was at the point where the only thing I was ever doing was work and school. And I was like, I really want to invest in this school thing and kind of see where it can take me. And so I ended up leaving my job to pursue school full time, and that was only last fall. So last fall was actually my first semester of full time school at community college. Um, and at the time, I was not even thinking of going to a place like Cornell. I was like, I'm just gonna like finish my associates. I'm gonna go down the road to my state school that like everyone goes to. Um, and then it was actually the program director at my veterans center at my community college. And he was like, hey, like, have you ever heard of like this organization called Service to Schools? And I was like, no. He's like, I think you'd be like a really good candidate for like some of these schools. And I was like, Yeah, like it's a really big long shot. It's a really big long shot. Like I don't think so, but thank you. But I was like, I'll like put in an inquiry, like kind of see what's up. And then, went on a whirlwind of a journey with service to schools that I'm just so grateful for. And so now here I am. So it's been actually a crazy year. And I kind of cannot believe that I'm sitting here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so many follow-up questions, because some of the conversations that I also have are with school counselors, and they are a little hesitant to maybe recommend the military as a career for post-secondary, right? Like there's this big push to encourage students to go straight into college, to pursue higher education. Can you share a little bit about you said you'd always wanted to continue in your education, but you also really wanted to serve. What was that experience like when, your friends or your classmates are applying to college and you were kind of taking that step and saying, nope, I'm going the military route? Like, how did you make that decision? Is that a family thing? Did your school counselor help with that? What was the influence there?
It was definitely not from my school. My school definitely pushed college hard, while I feel like simultaneously not giving too much support with the whole like application process because I really knew nothing about it at the time. Um, it was always something that I had just been curious about and like kind of wanted to pursue. Um, and I actually filled out like my freshman year of high school. I filled out a paper at like my guidance office and they were like, "Oh, like what are your plans for after high school?" And I was like, "Oh, I put down that I wanted to join the Marine Corps." And then like years go by, I forget all about that because all of my friends are going to college. I even like my parents took me on like college tours. We came up to Cornell to like look at Cornell. They were like, "Oh, maybe you want to apply here." And I wasn't interested at the time. Um, I just didn't. I think that I knew I didn't have the work ethic to be successful in school, and so it was really daunting to me. But my senior year, actually, a Marine Corps recruiter came to my band class, and he was like giving a talk about like the music program. And he pulled me aside at the end of class, and he was like, "Hey, like I found a paper you filled out when you were a freshman, saying like that you wanted to join the Marine Corps. Like, are you still interested in that?" And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I'm just gonna go to college. Like, that's the plan. That's everyone else's plan. That's my family's plan for me. Like, I'm just gonna do that. And he was like, okay. He's like, well, why don't you like come in tomorrow and we'll like sit down and we'll talk. And I was like, okay, not thinking anything of it. I was like, whatever. I'll entertain the guy. And so I went into school the next day, sat down, talked to this guy during my band class, went home that day, and I went up to my mom and I was like, I think I'm gonna join the Marine Corps.
What was
And
her
she was like,
reaction?
oh, I don't think any mom is super excited about that. I think she tried her best to be supportive, while
Uh,
simultaneously being like, oh my God, like
right.
that's not ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I love that story. And then a second follow-up question is you talked about the connection between your job in the Marine Corps and the job that you had after you got out. And a lot of people think, well, there's jobs that don't require degrees. If you're already working in the field and you already had kind of like the job, why did you
Mhm.
feel it was important to go back and complete a degree?
So I think that yes, it's absolutely possible to get a job, have a career without a degree. Um, One thing for me was that I just love to learn. I love to learn. That's always something that I felt. But also, I sort of saw a dead end where I was at. I had started at my job as like a group leader in production, and then I got promoted to a supervisor there. And I was like 25, like supervising like people that were like middle age, and that was kind of like crazy. Um, I felt a lot of like imposter syndrome around that. I was like, oh, like, but I had this boss that like really believed in me and really trusted me. But still, like, I wanted more than that. Like I wanted to be able to like push myself further than that. And that was a huge thing that I had to look at when I was deciding between, should I continue on this career path that I love? I loved my job. I loved where I worked. But I wanted more than that, and my possibility for growth was sort of limited because I didn't have a degree, and not only just I know a lot of people say like, oh, you just need that piece of paper. But also like, right, I know that there's so much more to learn and there's so many more skills that are so valuable. And it can be really easy to get into that mindset. I think that going to school, especially in your older age, especially as a non-traditional student, is very daunting. And there's especially people in the military, I think, there's a lot of pride there. And that is something that, especially when I started, I was like, is this something that I'm going into that I'm gonna fail at? And even now I feel that way sometimes still. And it takes a lot to kind of confront that within yourself and like ask for the help that you need. Um, but yeah, I knew that there was more to learn. I knew that there was more for me, and that was like really what drove my decision ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And going off of that, so there's asking for the help that you need as a first generation student and navigating this process on your own. Um, you found Service to School as a resource. What was that kind of like wrapping your head around? Okay, I'm applying to some of these selective schools, but kind of wrapping your head around, I'm transferring this admissions process. What do these things all mean? Help our listeners kind of understand from your perspective what that was like.
At first, I was just like toying with the idea. It wasn't anything really concrete. And I was like, I was super embarrassed to tell people about it too. Like when you're applying to like schools of that caliber, right? I'm like, oh, like I'm applying to Cornell, I'm applying to MIT, like kind of say it like as a secret. And then I think that like I have the personality type where like I would be like, yeah, I'm going through with it. I would kind of like do it, and then at the last minute, I would kind of be like self-select myself out of it and be like, you know what, like giving up before I ever give myself the chance. And also as a first generation student, I knew absolutely nothing, not one thing about applying to schools. And I honestly didn't really, even as a first gen student myself, I didn't understand why people made such a big deal about being a first gen student. Like, oh, like it's such a big thing. And I realized when I was going through the process that, like, oh my gosh, there's so much that I don't know, and there's so much that I'm at a disadvantage about just because I'm a first generation student. And Service to Schools was an incredible, incredible resource during that. Something I didn't know, I had literally no idea, is that you can just reach out to an admissions office and say, hey, this is who I am. These are the questions I have. Could you help me out? I never in a million years ever would have done that. I talked to my Service to Schools ambassador, who is incredible. I love her. And she was like, yeah, she's like, these are really good questions to reach out to like admissions officers. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what, I can't do that. And so she was an incredible resource in helping me navigate something that I just was super lost in. And I did things that helped me during the process that I absolutely never would have done had I not had that guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the list of schools that you ended up applying to.
So I ended up applying to Cornell, MIT, Stanford, Northeastern, Northwestern, and Drexel and Rowan. So Drexel and Rowan are, well, Drexel's a really good school, really good engineering school, really in Philly. So it was like 15, 20 minutes from where I was currently living in Jersey. And then Rowan is my like at home down the road state school that I was really banking on because I thought that I was not going to get in anywhere else.
Yeah. So, I mean, having a balanced list, right? Like that's the end of, I tell
Hmm.
everyone, the end of the work that we do. I want to make sure you have options. And those options could be, your school down the road. They could be going back to community college and strengthening your application. Could be joining the workforce, right? But we always just want to make sure that students have that plan. And that's part of what I feel Annie and I harped so much on with the cohort was like, let's make sure that you all have plans, you
Hmm.
know, um, for our listeners. So the cohort students have to be first generation. For the most part, our cohort members are transfer students, so they have some previous college work, either while they were on active duty or at a community college. And then we also require or ask that they have a 3.5 GPA. So we already have a group of students that have kind of put in the work, but could use a little additional support from former admissions officers like Annie and myself. So, what was your experience like in the cohort?
I loved the cohort because, like I said, I was super embarrassed to talk about like schools that I was applying to with like my peers that I was in community college with. So it was really, really nice to have a space where I could go full of people that were like-minded individuals with similar ambitions to me. And I didn't feel crazy for wanting these things. And, I also loved that it was a place to talk about my fears and like my insecurities through the process. Because it can be a really scary thing to put yourself out there like that. And it was really, really nice to have that space to talk and say, like, hey, like, I'm having trouble with this. Like, do you have any like thoughts or advice on it? Especially because, like, we were all, I think, at the very beginning at a little bit of different points in the process. So, it was really helpful to say, like, hey, I'm thinking of getting a letter of recommendation from my employer rather than a professor at my community college. Like, have you reached out to any admissions offices? Like, is that kind of like an appropriate thing, or is that going to be like welcome to my application, or are they kind of going to be like, I don't care, throw it away? So that was super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the cohort, with you all being our first round, Annie and I didn't really know what to expect in terms of, just we could come prepared with a topic, with slides, with all of the information that we were like, we really just want to share this information with these students. And some of the feedback that we got were like, that's great, you all have that planned, but we really just want to chat. So you all were, like you said, just asking questions, sharing experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was honestly one of the best takeaways for Annie and I, that like there isn't a space, like you mentioned, for,
Mm-hmm.
veterans who are the non-traditional student to ask these questions and to voice these concerns, and, figuring out how you all are in this boat together, kind of like fighting up the same river with the same paddle, and meeting those challenges head on. So that's been one of the things that we've trying now to implement in the second cohort that we're working with now, is like just truly giving you all the space to share these experiences and these challenges, and not, having us be the speakers as much. So, okay. You will forever be remembered as, I was talking with Kyle Downey from Cornell last week, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like, it is just incredible that we got Kate from MIT. Just absolutely incredible. That is like his like seal stamped, his like claim to fame. So what was it like making a decision between two absolutely incredible institutions that, like students are like would never
Mm-hmm.
imagine themselves at, right?
Very difficult. Very, very difficult. I think at some point in the process, I was like, what if I don't get in anywhere? And then, like, even my safety school, I was like, what if I can't go to college because no one takes me? And then maybe like a week later, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I get into like multiple of these schools and then I have to like make a decision? And it ended up happening. So Cornell was, at some point, Cornell became like my main focus. Like, the more I found out about it, the more I was like, this seems like such a great fit for me. Um, to the point where like I actually like almost didn't even turn in my MIT application. And I remember it was getting close. It was getting very close to the deadline. And I'm a procrastinator. I'm a procrastinator at heart. And so it was probably like 2 weeks before the deadline. And my service schools ambassador was like, hey, like, do you remember when you said that you were going to apply to MIT? Like, maybe we should do that. And I was like, I took my SATs and everything. Like, I was going to do it. And then I kind of like let it go. And then I was like, you know what? You're right. I put together an application. I submitted it. I remember submitting it and going like, I don't know, that doesn't feel good. And so I ended up getting my MIT decision back first. Um, and that was like that incredible like movie moment where I realized like, oh, okay, like these things that I've been working for are not for nothing, right? Like, I'm not working hard just for no reason. Like, this is real, and like I can do something with this. And so that was just an incredible feeling. And I was also really nervous because I hadn't heard from Cornell yet, and they were about a month into their admissions like decisions, releasing them. Um, and so I ended up reaching out to Kyle Downey. I had been in contact with him throughout the admissions process, and I ended up reaching out to him so it was a week later, the day before they were releasing like another round of decisions. And I was like, hey, I just wanted to like touch base. I ended up getting like a decision from MIT, and like I really want to make a plan, but like I don't know like if I got into Cornell yet. Like, do you know when I might be finding out? And so I did find out that I got in, and then it became like really scary. I almost, even though I wanted to go to Cornell so bad, I was like, oh, I kind of hope they say no so that I can just like, so the decision
Have
is
the
like made
decision
for
made
me.
for you, right?
Um, and then I found out I got in, and then I go, oh my gosh, now I need to make a decision. And it becomes really difficult really fast, um, because I really needed to, and it was super important to me to honor the things that I really wanted. What do I want the next few years of my life to look like? What do I want to get out of a college experience? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just a degree, it's not just a piece of paper. It's who do I want to be at the end of those 3 years? Um, and I think that people hear that you get into MIT and they go, "Oh, you're going to MIT." And I'm like, "Oh, like not necessarily. Like there's a lot of things that I need to, like go through for myself." And that was always something throughout the whole process that was really important to me, was finding a school that was a good fit. Even in the beginning, I had a laundry list of schools that I was like, yeah, I'm just going to throw a ton of applications out there. Um, and then I realized that through like my research, even if a school is on paper an incredible school, if you look more into it, it might not be the right fit for you. And so that's why only ended up applying to however many I did, instead of like initially I had like 20 schools on my list. Like it was kind of ridiculous. Um, but yeah, and so I really had to look at what was really important to me. What did I want to do while I was in college? Um, and it is very difficult, but also throughout the entire time, I was extremely grateful, because I know that that is such an incredible position to be in. Choosing between MIT and Cornell, like you can't make a wrong decision. And so it was really, really nice to be in a position where I could look at it and say, like, what do I want? And am I able to give myself those things? Yes. And you just have to kind of like filter out the noise and really think about what is important to you.
Yes. I mean, you just gave a master class in applying to schools that are a good fit, right? Like you
Hmm.
could throw applications out to all of these schools, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a good understanding of why these schools are a good fit for you, that kind of comes through in applications, right? Like
Hmm.
everyone's just trying to shoot their shot at these schools. And it takes being thoughtful and intentional with your essays and your applications and the relationships you're building, right? Like you had said you talked to Kyle several times. Like he
Hmm.
knew the type of student that you were and the benefits that you would bring to campus. Like there's so much more than just throwing, applications out there and kind of seeing where they fall. Because I've done this work for years and it's always those students that are just like, well, I'm going to shoot my shot, that walk away and it's like, well, didn't
Hmm.
necessarily work out how you planned. But just an incredible opportunity for you to see yourself and the future, that you want to build for yourself. So let's pivot a little bit more. So you're on campus. You did summer bridge there, so you got to come to campus a little bit early,
Yeah.
transition to life in upstate New York, and figure out, where your classes would be. Now classes are going, everyone's back on campus. What is the energy like there?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because during the summer it was like so peaceful and so beautiful, and now it's like busy, busy, busy. Um, but it's really motivating, honestly. And the thing that I love about Cornell that was honestly a big role in my decision was like there's so many people here doing so many like diverse, incredible things. And that's something that I really love to like be around all the time. It's definitely an adjustment being in classes full time here, like during the semester. So like over the summer, it was a condensed course. I believe it was 6 weeks, and you're going every day, and it was like smaller class sizes too. So it was like more of that like vibe that I'm used to in community college, where you're getting to know your professor really well. Not a very big class, um, and that was really really nice. And there was even adjustments that I had to make like during the summer, like just adjusting to like living in a new place, right? Like finding out like where I'm gonna like get my groceries, like where I'm gonna go to like I don't know, whatever you do. But It's difficult, and it was a big change for me because like after I got out of the Marine Corps, I was like, I'm just gonna settle down and I'm just gonna stay in one place because I was kind of tired of moving all the time. Um, and so I had done a lot of adjusting during the summer, and I remember thinking then, I can't remember or I can't like imagine doing this while I'm in a full course load during the actual semester. So that was incredible that, I was able to do the summer bridge program here and kind of get my feet under me a little bit. And so then I felt really, really ready to take on the fall semester. And it has been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind. It's been challenging, definitely. And I have to continuously remind myself that this is what I wanted and this is what is good for me, right? Like, I knew that I wanted to go to an institution that was going to challenge me. I didn't want to, I'm a strong believer that, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that was something that I, that was a big role in me even applying to universities of this caliber. And now it's happening, and it's a lot tougher to deal with it when it's happening. But I am trying to constantly remind myself that there is only room for improvement, and that, even if I'm not the smartest person in the room, I still have a perspective to offer that is important and valid. So yeah, it's definitely been difficult, more difficult than I thought. But I think that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some things that you would suggest? And is that, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what are some things you would suggest for individuals that want to do this level of, like academic exploration, right? So would you have taken more math classes? Would you have worked with a tutor? Like, what do you think would help a student that's kind of like, can I do that work?
I definitely think that having a strong foundation is important. I sometimes I do question if the preparation, right? Because like all of these kids that I'm in classes with now have taken their like prerequisites. So they've taken like their Calc 1, 2, 3. They've taken their Physics 1, 2. A lot of them had taken that here. And I'm curious about the difference between that level of instruction that they received here and my level of instruction at community college. So that is something, and I'm not sure if it's that plays the biggest role in it, or if, right, it's just very recent for them. I think something else I have to remind myself is that we didn't all like go to the same high schools, right? So I'm in a statics class this semester, and I heard a girl say like, "Oh yeah, I haven't seen statics since high school," and I was like, "What high school are you going to that's offering statics?" Like that's crazy to me, right? Like that's so crazy, but like people have had like exposure before this, and so um but something that I recommend, I I think is not necessarily coursework specific. I think it's really your work ethic and your ability to ask for help. Because you know, I will be very candid. I started this semester not even in that many credits, 14 credits. And then quickly I was in three like heavy engineering courses, and I quickly realized like I don't know if this is going to be sustainable for me. And so I went to my advisor and I was like, hey, can we rearrange some stuff? Maybe I'll drop a class. I'll take it one of my other semesters. Um, and, she was like, absolutely. She was like, I would prefer you do that. Then, you end up staying here like longer and longer. And so that is what I ended up doing. So I dropped one of my courses. I'm in two engineering courses, now two like liberal studies courses. And it's a much better balance for me, especially going into my first semester. But I think had I never been to community college and like never, been able and felt comfortable asking for help in an academic setting, I don't think I would have done that, honestly. And office hours, I'm a big office hours girl, and I started that in community college, and it's paid off here a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you using the GI Bill or any veteran benefits there?
So I'm actually using Cornell financial aid.
Okay.
I did all of the math, and it is basically, since I'm living off campus, so it's a little different if you're living on campus. But the veterans advisor here and also the financial aid office like worked with me to kind of figure out which would be better for me. So I'm actually able to save my GI benefits and use Cornell full financial aid, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. And then there's a couple other cohort members that were going to Cornell this fall. Can you talk with us briefly about the veteran community there?
Yeah, so it was so over the summer, it was super nice because like I said, I had kind of a difficult time like transitioning to a new place. And through the summer bridge program, we did a lot of like events. We did like barbecues, stuff like that, just like things to like get to know one another. They're always like we have like a Slack channel for all of like the vets here. And they're always saying like, hey, like does anyone like want to hang out? Does anyone want to go like do this? And there's always like something to do. I don't do all of it because I am pretty introverted, honestly. But it's really nice to be able to get that break from school around people that honestly you automatically click with. And I'll be the first to say, like, not everyone in the veteran community gets along, right? Like, we don't all like vibe together. But we all have like a mutual understanding and respect of one another, and that really like bonds us a lot. And it's been super nice. And I actually so one of the current student veterans here, um, who helped out with the summer bridge program. I saw her the other day on campus. And I was just like, hey, do you have a minute? And I was like, I just want to talk about how hard this is. And I'm like kind of struggling. And I'm sure she wasn't like prepared to have that conversation. It was just like on the sidewalk between classes. But it was like really, really nice, honestly, to have that like type of relationship where we can really like lean on one another when we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kate, I mean, this has just been an absolute joy, and I know we could talk for so much longer, but one last question for you. What is your piece of advice to either first generation student veterans or applicants that are currently in the process, future applicants? What is your piece of advice to them listening?
My advice is just if you have any single doubt that you can do this or that you can do any of your goals, just do it anyway. Just try anyway. Because I think that you will be pleasantly surprised with yourself. And
Yeah,
it would be a shame to never give yourself that opportunity.
absolutely. No, over and over and over again. So thank you so, so much for being here. I know we will stay in touch and continue to hear about all the amazing things you're doing at Cornell. Either I will reach out to you or I'll ask Kyle every time I chat with
Yeah,
him. So, Kate, thank you for letting us, pick your brain, sharing your journey. This has been an absolute joy.
of course. Thank you so much.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.